Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing okay this morning. We're back with another match analysis. If you want to get some bonus content, head on over to the Patreon, which is now available. Link in the description below. You can also get some merchandise, as I always promote to you guys. It is well worth it. Mine's in the wash at this moment in time, and I do not feel as fresh. Link in the description below. Shipping everywhere. So there you go. Make sure you check that out if you fancy some good material and supporting the channel as well. So we're here to talk about, we're reflecting on the game yesterday. Apologies for the background again. Normally, I know you're used to a professional setting, but I've not moved. I've just come home to say hello to parents and stuff, as you can probably tell. But yeah, we're here discussing Leeds United yesterday, the predicament going forward. I want to get your thoughts. If you haven't checked out the review yesterday and the fan reaction yesterday, make sure you do so. It's well worth it, I have to say. With 2 hours of really decent content yesterday. And yeah, I wanted to get into some things today that I think we all are very aware of that need to change for Sunderland, that needs to change for Blackburn. And I want to talk about the whole picture at this moment in time when it comes to what a massive week this is for Leeds United. So let's get into it. The week that is about to commence for Leeds. There are a real good 2 fixtures for us. Sunderland, Blackburn, for us to get back on the horse. That's 6 points. Let's not drop anything there, because I do not want us going into the last 3 with those games where we are needing to win, because we've dropped points into games where we should be winning. It should be 6 points. It's a minimum now, especially with what's happened yesterday. And you look at excuse me, you look at the other teams' fixtures. Watford unbeaten in 4, go to Ipswich Town, and then Middlesbrough go to Ipswich Town as well. But when you're looking at Ipswich's last 3, they have got Hull away, Coventry away, but their last game of the season is Huddersfield at home. So no easy game there, but obviously when you're looking at Leeds United and we've got Blackburn, Sunderland, Middlesbrough away, QPR away, and then Southampton at home, I'm not a massive fan of those last 3. And listen, I'm just not. I don't like the fact we have to go to QPR. I've never liked QPR, but it is what it is. We should have enough in the squad to be able to get on with that. And today, what we want to do is I want to speak to you guys about what I think needs to change and what needs to happen, in my opinion, for Leeds United to get, success for the remainder of the season. I want to get your thoughts as well. So, yeah, Leeds are 2 fixtures coming up: Sunderland, Blackburn, must wins, and we should be beating those sides. No excuses whatsoever. And I think it's a big week for all clubs. There's 2 away games for Leicester City, Plymouth, and Millwall. But I think they've not solidified themselves as such, but I think they've overcome that hump a little bit, even though they weren't great yesterday, Leicester. But they've overcome that hump a little bit, and they've got 2 wins on the bounce now. They have got that game in hand as well, which unfortunately is massive. It's absolutely huge having that game in hand, which us and Ipswich don't have. So it's turned around really quickly. Again, after Bristol City, it was like, oh my God, they're bottling it. But unfortunately, Leeds' last 3 games, we've got 4 points in 9. And this, it's not an overreaction, really, because I think since Stoke, Millwall, Leeds haven't been good. Leeds haven't been what they've been throughout the entire season, but we've been getting the results. We've kept clean sheets against those 2 sides. But this isn't an overreaction from Leeds fans at all, because Leeds fans have seen the last 3. Some more logic to put to it as well is the fact that Leeds United fans also know that it's 41 points in 48. It's unbelievable form, but we cannot afford to be anything less than perfect. So tweeting and putting stuff online like, I can't believe Leeds fans are overreacting. Leeds fans aren't overreacting. The ones who are overreacting are calling for Daniel Farke's head. That's overreaction. But the ones who are a little bit worried right now about our form in our last 3 are not unfortunately the overreacting ones. These are people who are looking at the game and thinking, right, well, 4 points in 9 when we've come from a period of winning 15 points in 15 and 18 points in 18. It's a great position, but it's the demands of the league this year. You can't do anything about it. We got promoted with Ben White and co, with Marcelo Bielsa in 1920, whatever it was, 2021, with 93 points. We're going to surpass that. The team who finishes 4th is probably going to surpass that. So that's the standard that we're at right now when it comes to the championship. So the goalposts have moved. You have to be perfect or nigh on perfect to win the league. You have to be nigh on perfect to finish 2nd, especially with where Leeds were at during the first part of the season. So these are all things that need to be taken into, my favorite word, context. This isn't an overreaction from fans and other people. This is looking at our last 3 games and knowing that to get automatically promoted in this division this season, You can't, toward the back end of the season, be getting 4 points in 9. You can't be going up against Sunderland and Blackburn and being okay with getting 3 points in 6 or 4 points in 6. It has to be 6 points out of 6. And then you look at the last 3 games, it has to be 7 points in 9 minimum. You know, we were looking on the debrief at Hull, Coventry, Watford, and we said it's got to be 7 points out of 9 and you'd be happy. It's not. It's 4 points out of 9, which is classified because we've been so good as a blip. Ipswich had their blip in around about January period. They overcame it. Leicester have gone through a little bit of a blip where they lost 3 games in 6. We've not done that at all. But because we've been so perfect this season, this is classified as our blip. And you've seen that with the performances in the last 300% with 3 35-minute performances, which have been good. Then you've got 70 odd minutes in 3 separate games now, which I think is a big portion size, nearly 210 minutes of football where Leeds haven't been good enough. So it's, as a sample size, it's more than enough to make a judgment on how Leeds are progressing at this moment in time. And that is why, for me, it's indicative that Daniel Farke needs to make changes within the ranks. Now, when I was looking at him yesterday, I thought he looks frustrated. There's a couple of hand gestures where he's flailing his arms and all this sort of stuff. Obviously, Glenn Kamara came off at half time. Now, there is discussion that Farke didn't think he was good enough yesterday. He didn't think he was good enough. He didn't have the right energy, is being quoted. So that's got nothing to do with an injury, interestingly. And I would agree with Daniel. I thought in that first half, Glenn was just sloppy, really, really sloppy. But I think there's a lot to talk about within the Leeds United ranks at this moment in time, not just Glenn Kamara and his maybe off performances. I think there's a few things that Leeds need to change in a productive way, in a positive way for Tuesday and going forward to get the best out of this side. Keep getting your comments in, everybody. I can see they are flying in at this moment in time. James, hey mate, hope you're all good. I got hammered and bid $5.50 for 2 Leeds Blackburn tickets at a charity auction last night. Girlfriend wasn't happy. Wow. Ruvi says, just when the pressure's been taken off, we lose. Typical. We can't let Sunderland do the double over us. Morning, Connor. We need chances. We need to improve our performances. We need to get automatic promotion. Morning, Connor. Sujal, the morning after the night before. Hiya, mate. Paul, I'm glad you enjoyed it, mate. Thank you so much. Ipswich still have commentary yet. Hope Cov do us a favour. Yeah, and let's get into a few things as well. I'm going to start off with set pieces, and I'm going to start off with potentially the implementation of someone from the bench who gives us a little bit of something. Now, since Strauch has been out, I think we've looked lifeless on set pieces. Attacking them has been dreadful. We have no real... the balls are played into the box. We can have corner after corner after corner after corner, set piece after set piece. Junior Firpo put 2 delightful balls in yesterday. Nothing. It was in the last 20 minutes. No sort of conviction from Leeds United. And it's easy for Cov. Cov didn't have to do anything. It's like, well, they're not going to get the nuts on this unless if we mark Joe Rodon out the game. That's sort of it. They're not going to have any aerial threat. What about Charlie Cresswell? And I've seen a few people mention this, and I completely agree with it. If you don't want to start Charlie, that's fine. But there's a discourse right now that if you were to bring Charlie Wright in to this setup, he would give us so much on set pieces. Without Byram, without Strauch, we are nothing on set pieces in that penalty. Byram's very underrated, very, very, very underrated when it comes to set pieces, winning headers, getting whatever on it. If it's a foot, if it's a head, if it's a chest, Byram's been really good from set pieces. But aside from that, Bamford's completely useless, really, when it comes to set pieces. Offers no threat. Rutter he's got his head on it a couple of times, but there's nothing really there in terms of conviction. Rodon, I'm surprised by the lack of sort of, set piece winners he's had. I'm surprised by that. Let me just refresh this, everybody. 2 seconds. But yeah, I'm sort of surprised. I'm surprised by how sort of poor he's been on set pieces as well. But bringing Cresswell in gives you a little bit of a different dimension. I think Cooper is never the right option, to be honest with you. But Cooper is probably a threat on set pieces, something that we don't have right now. And I think it's the fine margins in football right now. If you're wanting to get automatically promoted, these fine margins need to be developed on. Why are we not looking at maybe a Charlie Cresswell? Why is Daniel Farke? I mean, he's hugging him on the sidelines when we're scoring goals. So there's clearly a good relationship there that, that's built clearly back to what it maybe was. But there needs to be a little bit of a reinforcement in that for me. Archie Gray right now, should he be starting week in, week out? I don't know. But if you're doing this thing right now where potentially you put in Cresswell at the back, you can maybe move Ampadu into midfield, central midfield, and then you've got a different option, you know? Even if you don't want to start Cresswell, bring him on. Give us an option. And it's one of those where, oh, but that's not Leeds United. We don't want to be lumping the ball into the box. Well, okay. But if we don't do that, where are our fine margins? Leeds United's fine margins at the minute are passing it through the middle and doing plan A and doing it better. That's it. But if a team stifles us, we have no plan B whatsoever. And we can't even make plan A better and better and better because there's just one way of playing in plan A. Plan B gives you an option to do something a little bit different. And from set pieces, if you've got Cresswell in there, someone who literally scored with his head for Millwall around about 5 or 6 times last season, he gives you a different option. He gives you something, you know, not just the obvious Chris Somerville and Jorginho Rutter, who you rely on every single game. At least a set piece where we're actually putting balls into the box. We're doing short corners, but then we're delivering those sort of like we do those triangles on the edge of the box, don't we? Then we deliver the ball into the box, but there's no point. You manipulate space outside the box and you deliver the ball in, and nobody's there to header it in. You know, so it's a complete waste of possession unless you do what Leeds normally do, which is from a corner, you either put the ball in and it goes past every single man, or you just keep passing it around and passing it around and passing it around, and the team pushes you back to Elan Melier. So interested to hear what you guys have to say on that. Would you be looking at Charlie Cresswell, maybe implementation at the start or maybe implementation through the game? I just think it gives you a different option. Cresswell in the last 10 minutes seems a lot less chaotic than 4 strikers. Paul says, why didn't they bring Cooper on at the end for a corner? We're already losing. Farke is never going to start Cresswell. All great ideas, but can't see Farke bringing different players in now, especially games that haven't ones that haven't had a game yet. And I agree. Look, I'm not saying Farke's going to do this, but I think the implementation of a big boy would help, would give us a little bit of variation. Set pieces aren't integral to football unless you are another club. That's just arrogant, Andy. That's completely arrogant at this stage of the season. Those fine margins in football games are what gets you promoted. If you don't think Leeds United should be focusing on set pieces, that is probably the most arrogant mindset I've heard, or one of them on this channel. Football is a game of opinions, of course it is, but any fine margin, if we can develop on that, that's something that gets us automatically promoted. That's what I'd rather have, to be honest. Would you go to Wembley, Connor? I don't want to go to Wembley, but yeah, I would. I would be there. Okay, so let's talk about Archie Gray. We haven't spoken about him last night. Andy says as well, we must find a plan A, B, C. Cannot carry on as we are. Will someone put a decent corner ball in? Conor has been sarcastic. Andy, that's the thing is, mate, we can't tell when you're being sarcastic. But yeah, Archie Gray's another one right now. I think there's a lot of calls. We didn't speak about it so much yesterday in terms of Conor Roberts, but Archie's looking tired. I think his balls in when he's going forward are awful at the minute. I think he's not giving you a lot when it comes to, you know, centrally or you know, out right back. I thought he was easy to counter on yesterday. I thought when he got forward, his balls in when he's on the run were just terrible. They're either under hit or over hit. There's a call right now to bring Archie out, and he's only an 18-year-old boy. And this is what I was saying at the start of the season. When you're relying on someone like who's an 18-year-old, it's going to get to a point where you can't rely on him anymore because he's knackered, or you know, he's feeling it a little bit. And I think now we've seen Archie, in my opinion, for around about 4 or 5 games, struggle with it. So the reason you bring Conor Roberts in is so he's an option. He's a good option. He's a Premier League option. He's a championship winning option. So this whole thing of not changing too much at the minute, well, if players are underperforming, then the manager should be brave enough to make those decisions. You know, it shouldn't just be the constant rhetoric of, oh, you just keep the same team that we've gone with all season. If players are underperforming, if players aren't getting to that dial, that level, and they need taken out, and it's obvious, then you've got to make that change, as Farke did with Kamara yesterday. But I think in that midfield, he struggled a little bit. But at right back yesterday, once again, I thought, and I have thought his right back performances have just been not on the same level as they have been at the start of the season, or going through the middle part of the season as well. I think maybe we need to look at a Conor Roberts in there. And I think Conor Roberts gives us that little push towards the end of the season. Let's bear in mind how good this guy was for Burnley at their latter push towards the back end of last season, you know, getting that goal that got them promoted as well. But I think Archie is struggling at the minute. I think he is struggling. I'm not going to hammer him for that. Of course, I'm not. I try not to hammer anyone. I try to be fair. But Archie has been brilliant this season. But I think right now he is struggling with it. I think he's struggling to keep up with it a little bit. Keep getting your comments in the section below. Do you agree with that? I never get excited or expect anything when we have a corner. Sam said, you said Conor eventually would put too much pressure on Archie at young age and burn him out. I did say that, mate, but that's the reason I thought we brought Roberts in. It's that rotation. It's the rotation of having someone like Conor Roberts in there to put in someone who's of a top level when it comes to this level, and someone who you can implement and is ready to go. And yeah, I think at the minute Archie maybe needs looking at. Okay. Let's look at the right-hand side as well. I would say that this is something that we're learning as well. This is what this video is about and how we can implement change. So we've spoken about Cresswell, maybe Roberts, and even if you're not putting Cresswell in immediately, maybe he's an option. Someone who can give you something from corners, set pieces, whatever. We've gone on about that. But another thing that I think we need to tactically look at for this game and personnel in the next game is Willy Gnonto. I think Willy Gnonto, before he got injured on the international break, I think he was Leeds' best player. I thought he was fundamental. I thought his goal against Millwall almost topped that off. He had been excellent for Leeds, 7 goals, and that was rising and rising and rising. He was getting more confidence, a bit more vigour, and he was getting at oppositions in a ruthless way. And I thought he was building up a really good synergy as well with that front four. There was a little bit more of an understanding. It wasn't chopping and changing with him and Dan. But I think when we look at technical ability, Gnonto, as I've said from day dot this season, is a much better technical footballer than Dan James. Dan James in transition is good. Okay, we saw that with Hull when he's speeding up the pitch and he's putting the ball into the back of the net. It was a transitional moment. The keeper was out the goal, of course. But Dan is great on the counter-attack. But a lot of the time, Leeds aren't counter-attacking. We're trying to build up in a way that dominates teams, and teams are trying to counter-attack on Leeds United. But at this moment in time, I think you are seeing Dan revert to Dan James of old, which is poor decisions. It is this sort of cutting that he does on the right-hand side and weak left-foot effort that continuously seems to do as a little bit of an option, and it just eases into the goalkeeper's hand because he doesn't have that ball connection with his left foot. He's not good with his left foot. And I think at the moment you are seeing the difference between him and Gnonto on that right-hand side when it comes to production. Dan gets himself into brilliant positions, but the execution is not there and hasn't been there. Obviously, apart from that whole game, but I'm talking throughout a game, everybody. I'm not talking just about a moment. I'm not talking about a moment like he had against Hull. I'm talking about the other 90 minutes that he had against Hull, where he's getting himself in really good positions. He's overhitting crosses. He's underhitting strikes at goal, and he's wasting Leeds' options in the final third. So I think right now on the run-in, what you need to do is get Dan James out and put Willy Gnonto in. When he came on yesterday, Daniel Farke, for some reason, did what Daniel Farke does and puts him on, or puts an attacking option on for about 30 seconds and expects him to do something. But Gnonto came on with 6-7 minutes, was getting a lot of the ball, because the Leeds players evidently trust him. And on that right-hand side, we were doing a lot, to be fair, throughout the game, but Dan was giving us nothing. And just even when Gnonto came on the pitch, just him even standing up the ball and him just varying his crosses a little bit, the drilled cross that he put in that went out for a corner, the floater that went to the back post, there's just a variation in his crosses, and you just can rely on him to put a better ball in or produce more on that right-hand side. At this moment in time, Dan James will be out the side for me. Gnonto is a better footballer. Start your better footballers. And that's how I look at it right now. And I think the production on that right-hand side, especially with Archie Gray yesterday being sort of a contributor to that, was woeful, was really, really bad. And in the offensive third, when we get into these positions, it's great that we're there, but then we've got to do something. We've got to make it count, and we're not making it count enough. When you look at the production really in comparison to us and Ipswich, they don't have as good a players going forward. They don't. Nowhere near as good a players as we do going forward, in my opinion, caliber-wise. But Ipswich, in general, are a lot more ruthless than Leeds when you look at the XG over the season. When you look at that over the season, they are better at taking strikes in the opposition half, making better decisions in the opposition half than what Leeds United are with better players. We have the tendency to overplay, but our ball striking as well hasn't been great, and it hasn't been great for about 5 games. Going forward, in my opinion, we've been poor for about 4 or 5 games now, and that's why I'm talking about these changes to make Leeds a little bit more productive going forward. Ruby says these videos are so good and detailed. Farke should be watching them himself. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I think it's just my opinion. But if you guys agree with me as well, it's really interesting to hear your thoughts as well. But yeah, if you agree with these to make Leeds a little bit more productive, then then maybe Farke will make these changes. So yeah, we've spoken about Gray, we've spoken about Dan James, we've spoken about Cresswell. I think there are 3 decent changes there which can make Leeds a little bit better in certain areas. And now we'll sort of talk as well about Patrick Bamford. I sort of went in on his play yesterday, and I've not come back from that really. And I've sort of said this post Chelsea, and naturally, but I don't know why, but it was almost laughed out the building. I had certain commenters, people commenting. That's probably how I should phrase it. In the section below, saying you're delusional, picking Bamford over Joseph over Bamford, clown face, and all this sort of stuff. I was like, okay, all right, we'll see how this pans out, because we know, and we've always known with Pat Bamford, that he's a streaky striker. He's a streaky striker. His general play for me has always been bang average, but he's overhyped by this fan base like no tomorrow. He misses that chance against Hull the other night, and it's the fan base is brilliant in terms of support, and Leeds are one of the best, if not the best, in the country when it comes to supporting the players, even when they're down. But listen, there was a massive cry of Patrick Bamford when he misses a chance from a yard out and it goes over the bar. And I remember the same thing happening with Leicester. I remember the same thing when he missed the penalty against Newcastle. Listen, this has happened throughout Pat Bamford's career at Leeds United. He's streaky. The fan base try to pick him up. The ball might go in off his arse, and then, you know, he might get back to scoring 3 goals in 6 or whatever. But the facts right now are he's got 1 or 2 assists all season. He's got 3 goals in 9. And when we're just looking at those metrics, he's not got an assist since, I think it was Rotherham. And I don't get where, and I've had this conversation with loads of people asking for the upside of, and it's boring me saying it, but we're talking about things that Farke needs to change. And Pat Bamford has to come out. He's stinking the gaff out. He's honking the place out. And right now, you've got him in Leeds' build-up. Let's go on a different slant. Leeds' build-up, when we're in these positions, I've spoken about Dan James, where we get in these positions and we make the wrong decision. In comparison to maybe where Ipswich have made the right decision with lesser players. You've got better players making poor decisions in these areas. Dan James, at the moment, been one of them. Bamford is the hallmark of this criticism, the hallmark of it. Any single time he is in these critical moments for Leeds United where he just needs to maybe slide a ball through, or he maybe just needs to hold the ball and pass it off straight away and not just take 2 or 3 extra touches, which narrows the angle for, let's say, a Jorginho Rutter. Taking a strike from a realistic place, not taking it from a ridiculous angle and then scuffing it. The guy at the moment's decision-making is woeful. And then his productivity in terms of him scoring and him assisting isn't there, you know. Dan James scored the goal against Leicester. I'm still having it, but Bamford's got it because it went in and off his knee from the free kick. But listen, overall, I'm struggling to see him holding onto the ball. I'm struggling to see him causing any problems for centre-backs. I think he's easy to mark, really, really easy to mark. I think more of the focus is on Rutter and Somerville, which tells you a hell of a lot when you've got a striker who I don't even think the back two really focus on. He's stiff as a board, offers no, when he's on the ball, doesn't offer any danger for Leeds United. You don't think, oh, Bamford's got it. Nobody thinks that. Nobody does. He's stiff as a board. As I've mentioned, he can't hold on to anything at the minute. His first touch is appalling. His second touch is then nearly as bad. His play in terms of layoff. So when the ball comes to him, the whole chat at the beginning of January and February was when the ball comes into Pat Bamford, chest it down and lay it off. The problem is sometimes he can do the chest it down, but then the layoff will go beyond the man in a really simple pass. 3 yards, he'll balloon it 5 yards past the man, or it'll be too short and it'll get intercepted. And then he's not quick enough on the recovery to defend the ball or get behind the ball. So he might be on his arse, or the defender might skip past him, but then he's too slow to make that recovery. So then the midfield have to go forward to tackle Pat Bamford's man. Like, the guy is just completely off it. You guys have always known with me, when you've probably been an OG of the channel and watched it for a while, you've always known he's never been my favourite. He hasn't. And I don't want to generalise this, because I think, overall, Pat Bamford's done pretty well when he's coming from January. I can't lie. But it has been overhyped. He's been good. He's been decent at points, but he's not been very good. And this sort of exceptional tag that he for some reason gets tagged in by a lot of the fan base. I think Joseph has everything and more to what Bamford has. So yeah, at this moment in time, you surely take Pat Bamford out and put Joseph in. If you know, you can even do it for Bamford's sake, because the fan base are getting frustrated with him. We all know that. We can see that. So you bring Joseph in these opposition areas where we are getting the ball. Joseph was brilliant when he came on yesterday. Brilliant. Had a part in the first goal. Should have got an assist for the second goal. And as I've mentioned, everybody, this whole rhetoric, oh, well, Joseph will come on with 25 minutes when the opposition are tired. Well, why? Why? Hold on a sec. I'm just going to refresh this, everybody. 2 secs. You know, why does he need to come on? Why does he need to come on and affect the game for 25 minutes? Why don't you put him on for the start and see him affecting the first 65 and let's see where we're at then? You know, we might have won the game by then. You know, the impetus might be completely with Leeds United, which is probably how I'd prefer it, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I think Bamford needs to come out, and the 3 goals in 9, doesn't give me any sort of like, you know, oh, the data backs it up that he's doing really well at the minute. No, he's not. Okay, let's get into a couple more of your comments. Sujal says Bamford would even if the ball is over the line. I do not trust Bamford. He looks clumsy on the ball. He is, and that's a good way of putting it. Got to do something to freshen things up. They look tired since the international break. Tyler says he's a confidence player and his confidence has gone. Joseph every day of the week. Well, you know, it's a big one because Tyler's got him in his profile picture. But yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of his game, everyone, and you know, you look at a lot of his game when it comes to speed as a striker, aerial ability. You don't really see him scoring headers or anything like that. Threat when it comes to physicality with the defenders. I've said before, so his hold up play is better, but I was comparing him a lot of the time at the start of the year to Perot. It's obviously better than Perot. The different players. He's a lead line systematically. Bamford helps us because he's a number 9, so he's further forward than Perot ever was. But in comparison to Joseph's just miles ahead. Yeah, I think he's completely miles ahead in terms of a striker. So yeah, I think Indian Joe just said blip at the wrong time, Connor. But yeah, maybe that's where we look at it right now and we think to ourselves, these changes when we talk about Archie Gray, Charlie Cresswell, Willie Gnonto, Pat Bamford, set pieces. I think this is where Leeds need to look at it right now. And Leeds need to make a few changes that are going to give us that obvious way forward with 5 games to go. You know, the obvious way forward that's going to make Leeds sharper, quicker, more effective. The first 10 minutes against Coventry yesterday, we could have been 2-0 up if the right decisions were made, but the wrong decisions were made again in the final third. Strikes on the edge of the box, not taken, overplaying it. We could have been 2-0 up inside 10 minutes against Coventry. We actually started quite well. And then they eased into the game a little bit more. But we'd missed those chances, those crucial chances in the first 10 minutes. But this is what we're talking about now. And that's why you need to have better technical footballers on the pitch. Joseph is a better footballer by a mile when you look at connecting with the ball, when you look at football IQ, when you look at physicality, athleticism, then Bamford, I think he is. Even in the short spell that I've seen him. And Willie Gnonto is obviously that over Dan James. We've seen that so far. So yeah, Cov fan here in peace. I saw Bamford's name on the team sheet based only on that one game. There's a clear understanding between Joseph and Somerville and Firpo. There isn't with Pat Bamford. Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. Yeah, even Coventry fans are needing Bamford, saying Bamford should be replaced. It's not to just absolutely hammer on the guy. It's not, but he's not good enough. He's not good enough for Leeds United, in my opinion. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Really interested to hear what you think on this one. What other thing did you learn from this game? Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Head on over to the Patreon to check out the podcast. We've got the player ratings going up there as well. It's been an absolute pleasure, everyone, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.